Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jazakallah khair everybody for coming and attending Real Talk. Inshallah, before we will be shortly getting started. So first, inshallah, I'd like to call Hafiz Saad to do a short recitation for us.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا. صدق الله العظيم.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. We begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, most merciful, the one most worthy of praise. We will send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions, and the Muslim Ummah, past, present, and future. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, respected brothers and sisters. Jazakallah khair for attending today's Real Talk session. Alhamdulillah, we have a packed night ahead for everyone. So a little bit about the program structure today. We will be going on for a little bit until Maghrib Salah, and we'll break for Maghrib Salah. And then after Maghrib Salah, we'll continue with the rest of his program. And then inshallah, in between Maghrib and Isha, we'll do a short Q&A. There'll also be, there's coffee outside, there's burgers outside that you guys can, pre-order and go outside and pick up. A little bit about the burgers, just so we can keep the lines running efficient. We have this pre-ordering system. There's a form up there on that table. You guys can go ahead and fill out however much burgers you want. You'll be given a wristband. Take this wristband to the table outside whenever you're ready at the end of the night. Throughout the night, whenever you're ready to go out and get your food, and inshallah will provide you with your food up there. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. We'll also be releasing a Q&A form that you guys can scan with the QR code in the back, or we'll be sharing that in our Real Talk group chat. So if you're not in that chat already, let one of us know, inshallah we'll add you guys in there. So with that said, we want to welcome everyone who is first time at AD to Real Talk, and to people who have been coming consistently. Again, we welcome you back. The purpose of Real Talk is to provide an environment for professionals, young professionals, working professionals, parents, whoever is in our community, to kind of have the safe haven, have an environment where you're connected with a scholar, you can have questions addressed, We can learn about something regarding our being. We can come in for spiritual reminders. At the same time, we can get connected with people in our community who are like-minded individuals. And it's like the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad that together Muslims as believers, they're stronger. We enforce one another, just like the building blocks of a building, right? And so this is one of the big reasons of Real Talk is so we are connected with each other. And when we're eating a meal, when we're sitting next to each other in these sessions, in these talks, we sit next to them, we say salam to the person next to us, we connect with them, and we get to know them. So with that said, Real Talk is about learning about our real models, role models, and predecessors who came before us with real lives, real conflicts, and really important things that they brought forth for us. And to start us off, Rafiq Allah is going to talk about one of our Sahabas and one of his stories to kind of intro today's session. So I'll give it off to Rafiq Allah.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فسيكفيكهم الله وهو السميع العليم صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم.
السلام.
Do a little bit. I know the topic is death, but like we don't gotta be dead while we're talking about it. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, there we go. Alhamdulillah, we're back. The Real Talk community is back, and I'm very happy to be back with you all as well. As you all know, alhamdulillah, I just came back from my journey to the Holy Lands in Jerusalem, and also visited Turkey as well. Alhamdulillah, amazing time there. Lots of reflections that I can't wait to share with everyone. Spiritual reflections, of course. I'm not going to go to vacation and talk about my great time that I had there, but it's more so spiritual reflections because those were Holy Lands. So inshallah, I will share anecdotes from my travels throughout the course of the lecture, but I am inshallah going to intro the topic like we always do through the lens of one of our role models of the past. Right? We always remind ourselves at the beginning of every Real Talk that the only real reminder that we can get, the real lesson that we can get, the real role model we can use is someone who's already dead. من كان مسلما فليستمل بمن قد مات. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the great Sahabi companion of the Prophet Muhammad says, whoever should take an example, a role model, should do so of someone who's already dead, who's already passed away. فإن الحي لا تؤمن عليه الفتنة, because someone who's alive, you'll know. They can go this way, they can go that way. They're amazing today, they can turn out to be absolutely corrupted tomorrow. But who are these people amongst those who have passed on, who are correct and worthy of following? He says, أولئك أصحاب محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Those were the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the community of people he created. Because why? Their qualities were such. They had the cleanest of hearts. You say they had the most money, or they had the most fame, or they had the most luxury. No, they had the cleanest of hearts. The deepest of knowledge. They didn't say the most knowledge, because when you have a lot of knowledge, it can make you arrogant. He said the deepest of knowledge. Deep knowledge is when you're humble enough to understand that there's so much more to learn. And then he says that these people, whenever they would have any form of a conflict, it would just go back to the fact that we all are going to die. That was the common theme. I mean, one of my role models from amongst these great companions, as many of you know, I talk about him all the time, Umar ibn Khattab. He didn't care for aesthetic or jewelry or clothes. When he walked in to conquer Jerusalem, one of the most important days in human history, he walked in with 17 patches on his clothes. We know that. But the one aesthetic piece that he had, one little piece of jewelry he had was a ring. And I got the replica made. That's what. So one thing anecdote I'm going to share from my journey. Death is sufficient of a reminder. You don't need a long lecture. You just see somebody die and be like, man, all of that life gone in a split second. said, death is sufficient of a reminder. You just look at his hand all the time. Whenever you look at his hand, remember, I'm going. These people, the way they kept it together all the time, the way they managed to see through all of the emotions that they were put through, all of the challenges that they faced, everything that they had to do to deliver this beautiful religion to us, how did they keep it together the whole time? It was this reminder that, you know what, nothing on this earth really actually matters. You know what I'm saying? How did they act correctly? Because our goal as a Muslim is we don't behave correctly only when you're in a situation to do so. When circumstances are conducive or when people are being nice back to you in return. We believe that you're supposed to be nice all the time. How were they nice all the time? How did they keep it together all the time? Because they always remember that we had to go. They're not here forever. You know what I'm saying? If I'm mad at you today, and what if I don't open my eyes to forgive you and say sorry tomorrow? It was always on their head. Now, one of these companions that I want to intro with, because we always start with one, all of them are beautiful role models, but one of them that comes to mind right now is the great, glorious Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu. Anybody who knows Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, or anything about him, just saying his name makes your heart fill with love. The son-in-law of the Prophet ﷺ through his daughters. The Prophet ﷺ said, you know, one of them passed away, he married him to the next one. He said, man, if all of them kept passing away, I'd marry him to every single one of them. That's how much he loved Uthman. Uthman, radiallahu anhu, the most humble, the most shy, the most bashful, the most beautiful person. The person who the Prophet ﷺ said he was so modest personally, in his own modesty. He said he never even seen his own private area. He's never seen his body. He's never seen his full self unclothed. That's how bashful, modest, humble of a person this guy was. Uthman, a few of his virtues are such. The Prophet ﷺ one time was doing a fundraiser, right? A fundraiser. There's so many virtues of him. I'm just going to share like 2 or 3. In the fundraiser, he says, well, I mean, this fundraiser, guys, is basically for our survival. You know, this is to fund our battle here. We're a small group of people. If we don't use everything that we have, they're going to kill us, right? We know them for their oppression, their tyranny. That's it. If we don't give everything we have, it's over for us. So people open your hearts and give. And those people, you don't really need fancy words to give. They gave everything they had, but they didn't have much. You know, the Prophet ﷺ taught them to live like a decent lifestyle. They didn't have much. Uthman was one of the rich ones, one of the wealthy ones. But the thing is, his wealth was never for himself. He always just gave it away. So Uthman kept giving, right? And when he kept giving, he didn't give like, you know what I'm saying, like a small check with a small. No, he would come with like loads of almost like heaps of gold, like almost like their whole assets type of money, right? Each time he came with this like whole, like he was carrying like a whole arm full of gold. The Prophet ﷺ, every time Uthman would come, we just look at his lap, just filled with all the gold that Uthman put in there. Came the first time, the Prophet ﷺ cried out one more time. Anybody else got Uthman came the second time, filled it again. The third time, now this is basically almost all he got. So this is everything for Uthman at this point. Because again, he's a wealthy businessman, he's getting, but this is all he got at this point. So he literally brings everything he has and puts it on it. And the Prophet ﷺ, at this point, the fundraiser, he just stops in the middle, he's gazing upon his lap, and he's like playing with these gold coins, like, looks at Uthman, today, anything Uthman does, you're forgiven, but like, how could a person like you ever do that? Right? This is what kind of a person, how can the most beautiful human being ever to walk the face of the earth, Muhammad Rasulullah, is saying about you, that man, you can't be bad. Nothing that you can do can harm you. Nothing that you can do can make you a bad guy. You're such a good person. This Uthman radiallahu anhu, his relationship with death was as follows. He was always seen lurking around graveyards. And whenever he would go around those graveyards, he would sit there and he would just cry. He would start reciting the Quran and he would cry. And he cried so profusely they described his beard, like how he looked, his beard was like really big, it was like this thick. He would cry until his whole beard looked like someone had poured a bucket of water on it. Right? And then some people would pass by him and they would say, Uthman, by the way, the Prophet ﷺ guaranteed you paradise. He said you're going to paradise for sure. He said, also, the Prophet ﷺ says, no, Uthman, my father called you can't be bad. Like, nothing you do after this day can harm you. Do you not remember all these things? Why are you crying like this? Of all people that cry at graves, why are you crying? Is it someone who you love that died here or something? He said, no, I don't know who this person is. It's grave. And why are you crying like this? He said, because this right here is the first stage of the hereafter, of the life after. If everything is good here, everything is going to be good in what comes after. If anything is screwed up here, then everything after is going to be bad. I really want to make it. I really want to make it. I really want to. It's no complacency. They were so full of life because they were always thinking about death. That's the only way you can be full of life. Because again, if you feel like your life is all like funky and gloomy or whatever, then you're going to always walk around it. But if you feel like, man, I only got a little bit of time left, it's crunch time all the time, you're going to be on the move all the time. You're always going to be doing something to benefit yourself. Now, Uthman radiallahu anhu, I wanted to talk about how he, again, this was his relationship with death. He would always be seen around graveyards saying these type of words regardless of what the Prophet ﷺ had said about him. But how did he actually die? It was a very tragic and a very lesson-filled story. Right? How it went down and the incident, inshallah, we're going to start talking about that after Salat al-Maghrib. There's only 2 minutes left for prayer time. Inshallah, the adhan will be called in 7:32. 1 minute, inshallah, we're going to pray Maghrib together, and we're going to start the next discussion with the story of Uthman passing away, and then we're going to talk about a few reminders of how we should develop and cultivate a beautiful relationship with death, and a healthy one, so it can also make us filled with life while we're alive this few days that we're on this earth. Alright, so jazakallah everybody for attentively listening. As proceed for salah, if anybody needs to make wudu or anything, you guys. That's the little area right there. If anybody wants, inshallah, after Salat, quickly grab something before you come back, grab something, at the coffee shop or whatever. You grab something, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أينما تكونوا يدرككم الموت ولو كنتم في بروج مشيدة وقال تعالى قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون وقال تعالى ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم. صدق الله عليه العظيم. Dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, we continue inshallah from where we left off. We were talking about the beautiful companion Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu. The reason why I keep saying the beautiful companion of Uthman radiallahu anhu is again, he's one of the most beloved people to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know what I'm saying? He's one of those people, again, just seeing how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would react to his presence would fill a person who has iman in their heart with love. Right? Like he was sitting once and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was just sitting, nothing was changed. Right? Umar radiallahu anhu came to visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he was just casually sitting. Nothing changed about the appearance or anything. He was just still as casual as anything. And then Uthman comes, the Prophet ﷺ gets up, fixes himself as if, giving respect to him. and then he notices his like legs were a little uncovered, so then he just covers them, straightens up his clothes, and then he greets him. This is just how the Prophet ﷺ would like feel just around being around Uthman radiallahu anhu. Uthman radiallahu anhu, to give you a little context before we come to his dying day, because that's a huge legacy. If we're speeding past to this legacy's final day, it's only going to be beneficial if you have a little context. The context of this legacy is it comes after three great legacies. Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thereafter, his successor Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abdullah ibn Uthman is his name. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Then the glorious, mighty reign, 10-year reign of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, spread justice in the world till this day. The United Nations got his quotes right there. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. How can you enslave somebody who was born free? Umar radiallahu anhu leaves behind this. Because again, before Umar radiallahu anhu, the Caliphate of Islam is supposed to be reckoned with, but it's not that big. During his time, the once upon a time, which was just Mecca, and just some shepherds here, the Byzantine Sassanids, they don't even want to conquer this land because they're like, who are these people? In the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, it goes from being that to now he's the king of Iraq, Iran, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Lebanon, that whole area. Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, North of Pakistan. That whole thing is the Islamic kingdom in the time of Umar. So glorious reign, king of the world, right? Umar doesn't act like one because he's always walking around with tattered clothes. He doesn't care about anything that he has. So Uthman who comes after these glorious reigns. Each of these reigns had a specialty. Obviously, Rasulullah's reign was to deliver the message. Abu Bakr in his reign, the effort that was rendered was, his legacy was, there was no stability. If the Prophet ﷺ, who was the most beloved human being to a group of human beings who have ever loved, right? Because what would the Romans and Persians say about his companions? They would say, we've seen kings, leaders, prophets, messengers being respected and loved, but none like Muhammad and his followers. Nobody had seen anything like that. So when he passed away, the shattered state of the nation is also something that could not be ignored. Abu Bakr in his time kept it together. He was the glue that kept the whole ummah together. At a time where even Umar was overcome by emotion, he was like, man, I don't know if he's actually gone. I don't think he passed away. He couldn't hold it together. No one could handle the death of the Prophet ﷺ like Abu Bakr did. So he kept it together. Now, in the reign of Umar, that basically what Abu Bakr did set the stage for him to do what he did and conquer the world. So now, Islam is a world empire after Umar. Uthman, in his time, what happened during all of these, battles and campaigns and these defenses and people attacking and people constantly, because again, people were constantly attacking, this empire because they're like, whoa, we don't want it to get too fat and big. So what was happening was the Quran was getting lost. The Hufaz of the Quran were passing away, left, right, and center. People who mentioned, I mentioned this to someone earlier prior to this talk, that the Quran, the preservation mechanism is not like books and treasure chests and libraries, manuscripts that are being kept safe in museums. No. The preservation of the Quran, the reason why, since the time it was revealed through the Prophet ﷺ, till now, not a single letter has changed from the original language. Every single diacritical mark, every single destination inflection, every single accent is perfectly in order, and many of us, again, there's Hafiz right here who has it memorized, Hafiz back there who has it, the whole thing memorized, from start to finish. These are those treasure chests. So now these treasure chests, Uthman was reign by the time he became the Khalifa were being slaughtered. They would target these people, and because again, their goal is to destroy this religion. How do you do it? By destroying these clergymen, right? People who have its Quran, its fundamentals preserved. Uthman, in his time, completed the glorious project of putting the Quran together, compiling it in the format that we have it now. Before it was just in the hearts of people, now we can actually look at it and read it and memorize from it. So Uthman's service to the Ummah is what you and I read every single day. Inshallah, it should be reading every single day. That's his service. That's his legacy. Now, this glorious legacy, towards the ending of it, it wasn't as glorious in terms of the political health of that community. Right? The stability wasn't there anymore. In Umar radiallahu anhu's time, the stability was so cool. We talked about how he conquered Jerusalem, right? The way he did it was, he just walked in and the guy who he's supposed to be conquering is fanboying him the whole time. Sophronius, the patriarch of Christianity, is saying, oh man, with a leader like you and me, never gonna lose. Oh my God, you're just like the person I saw in the books. You know what I'm saying? Like he's fanboying the whole time. Oh, for this kind of person, I'm going to give the keys to Jerusalem. Right? In his time, there's just so much stability. Uthman's time, not so much. Uthman's time, there's a group of people who start, because again, he's a very soft person, very kind-hearted. Soft not in a bad way, because if you're soft, how do you go through all those battles and stay alive? Right? He's not soft in that sense. Soft in the sense that, it was very difficult for him to say no to anyone. It was very difficult for him to hurt anyone, even if someone is hurting him. So because of this, generally, if you have a kind leader of this nature, people start taking advantage. Right? And people did start taking advantage. They formed so many guerrilla groups against him. So many rebellions were started on the low. But it got really, really intense. I'm skipping past a lot of history just so we can focus on the death part of it. Right? Until it got really bad and they surrounded his whole house. All these rebels, these little people who thought that they could get their way and do whatever. The only way they were now going to actually legitimize themselves is that they said, Uthman is not a Muslim anymore. We gotta kill him. If you're a Muslim, why would you even do that? First. Nevertheless, they surround him, that's their excuse. We gotta kill him, we gotta assassinate him, because he's not a Muslim anymore, or he has to relinquish this caliphate. He has to give it over to us. So they encircle his house. And they don't do it right away, they take their time with it. There's negotiations going back and forth, because if they're reckless and they do it right away, then the Sahaba are not going to leave them alone. Right? They encircle his house, Uthman is in that house. Some Sahaba get word of this, and Abdullah ibn Umar, his ancestor, his son, comes to Uthman because his son is also one of Uthman's closest. It's like his nephew. Umar is like his brother. Now his Umar's son is like his nephew. Right? So, Abdullah, what should I do? Abdullah, what should I do? Should I just give it up and you know what? Then in that case, they're not going to kill innocent people. They're not going to shed blood. Should I just give it up? Or should I just stay firm and hold on to it? Abdullah said, he asked him a question. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O leader of the believers, if you give it up, do you really think their desire to kill you is going to lessen? Like, do you really think they're going to not want to kill you anymore? He said, no, that's not the case. They're probably still going to kill you. He said, if that's the case, then he said, well, aren't they rightfully deserving of it? No. They started this rebellion. Okay. Well, in that case, he said, well, do they have Do they own your heaven and hell? Do they own your capability to enter either of those places? No. So he said, in that case, don't take off a shirt that God has put upon you. Allah has put the shirt of khilafah upon you, don't take it off. Amir al-Mu'mineen, stand your ground. Stay firm, you'll be alright. Uthman says, no problem. Hold on to it. And hold on to it. They don't stop. They start doing all kinds of, blasphemous things. And the Sahaba are getting riled up. Even one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, what is the command for them? No one is allowed to marry them anymore. So the command for them is, stay in your homes. Right? Some of them interpreted it literally and stayed in their homes, and some of them interpreted it as, stay in your homes unless there's a dire necessity. And what's a dire necessity to one of them? Safiya radiallahu anha, Uthman, he's under attack. I'm a woman all by myself. What am I going to do in this crazy society of people who, if I ever come out, would look at me as a target? And this is the wife of the Prophet, the mother of the believers, but she said, I don't care for Uthman, I'm going to risk it all. She comes out of her home, gets on her, she didn't even have a camel or a horse, she has a mule. She gets on her mule, and she goes to defend Uthman with all of her might that she has. And then one of these terrible, terrible people, starts striking her mule, and the mule starts quivering, and she said, no, this guy, you know what, get me out of here, this guy is going to take off my veil. This guy's going to expose me. At that time, even at this time, her only thing is, I'm going to defend a modest man, I got to worry about my modesty, so let me go home. So she goes back home, and there's so many of these things happening. And during one of the negotiations, Uthman radiallahu anhu really tried to deter them, because his main goal out of this whole thing is, we already talked about his relationship with death. He was going there anticipating it all the time. So he's not scared of death, but what he's scared of is another group of people getting the sin of killing me. I don't want them to get the sin of killing me. He's still at this point, he's more worried about his murderers getting the sin of murdering him. So he tries to, in a heartfelt manner, negotiate with them. And look at this negotiation. That's why he's as beautiful as a person as he was. He says to them, guys, why do you want to kill me? He says, was I not the one who the Prophet ﷺ grabbed my hand and he went like this, and he says, anyone who pledges allegiance to this is like pledging allegiance to me. Did the Prophet ﷺ do that? And a group from amongst them. These are again all Muslims who are now saying you're not a Muslim or rebel. That's what happens when you take your faith and you turn it into some form of a forceful might. It's not, because Islam is mercy. Nevertheless, when they use it as something against mercy, look, these people who claim to believe in Rasulullah, he's telling them, your Rasul, did he not grab my hand and say it's like pledging allegiance to me? And all of them say, yes, that is the case. He says, is it not the case that that well that a lot of people from Medina drink from, a lot of these people is the main source of a lot of the well of Ummah. I bought that, and I made that for all the people to benefit. He said, well, the Prophet ﷺ, let me tell you, he says that it's not allowed to kill any person unless what? Qisas. They kill somebody else. So in retaliation in law, the court can now issue a ruling, a verdict for their death penalty if the family so chooses and refuses blood. It's only one way that a person can be killed. Or if a person commits adultery after getting married. And he says, or if a person goes and turns renegade and starts fighting the state, becomes a disbeliever, turns against it. They did that. He said, what have I done from almost those things? He said, I did not fornicate in Islam or when I was not Muslim. I didn't have a religion to tell me not to fornicate and commit adultery. I never did that. I never even looked at my own private areas. I never did anything to suggest lack of modesty. I never disbelieved in God and His messenger, let alone turn against them. He said, I didn't do any of these things. And did I kill anybody? Did I kill anybody? Could I kill? All of them said no. And all of them said, what you're saying is true. And that case, he said, why do y'all want to kill me? What do I do? Why do I want to kill him? They're like, nah, if you don't listen, we don't kill you. Nevertheless, you couldn't get through to them. And when people are fixated on fear and hurting people and whatever, they're not going to change their mind. No matter how much sense you try to talk into them, it's not going to change their mind. They do all kinds of crazy things. Uthman couldn't get through to them. That night he goes to sleep. And this night happens to be the eve of. When he goes to sleep, he sees a dream and he starts seeing more and more beauty in that dream. Like he starts feeling more and more comfortable until he sees a familiar face. He opens. Right? Who is it? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his beloved Muhammad ibn Abdullah is in his dream. And he looks closely, there's another person sitting there. That's Abdullah ibn Uthman. That's Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Radiallahu anhu. Then he looks at another person. We're just together a little more few years ago. And Rasulullah. And the Prophet around in front of him has a table spread filled with food. And he says to Uthman, come have your fast with us tomorrow. Come break your fast with us tomorrow. And Uthman, at this point, when he wakes up from this dream, you think he's going to want to go back to sleep again, unless this is a permanent sleep. Now he's ready. You wake up from that dream, your beloved is calling you. There's again the love that Rasulullah, that's why I talked about the love that the Prophet had for Uthman before. and wakes up from this. He's ready to go. He's getting ready for Salat al-Fajr. But this time when he's getting dressed, his wife Naila notices that while he's tying his pants, he's tying a little extra hard. What are you doing? He said, oh, when they kill me, I don't want my body to be exposed. I don't want my modesty to be uncovered. You see, he's ready. He's preparing himself to go. Now, as Uthman radiallahu anhu is dressed, he's ready to pray, Salat al-Fajr is done. What does he do? He says, last day on earth, what does he want to go doing? Grabs the Quran. He always would read the Quran. He's the one who helped write it. He's the one who helped put it together. So he wants the last thing that he does on this earth to be, I want to go reading the words of my Lord. So he picks it up and he starts reading it. And one of them comes, enters the room, tries to kill him. And as he's coming closer, even at this point, he's still thinking, no. Bayni wa baynaka kitabullah. Between me and you is the book of Allah. Please, out of the book of Allah's respect, stay away. So the first guy gets the message. I mean, obviously, these all, once upon a time, had said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. They have accepted Islam at one point, all of these people. So when you invoke Allah in that manner, and the one invoking Allah is Uthman bin Affan, it'll hit your heart. It hit his heart. He was struck with that thunderous voice of, between me and you is the book of Allah, and he left. The second guy comes, the same thing happens. So Uthman radiallahu anhu says, Bayni wa baynaka kitabullah. Between me and you is the book of Allah. Please, if you have any fear of Allah, leaves. A third guy, he says the same thing, Bayni wa baynaka kitabullah. But this guy doesn't care. He comes, he rushes up to Uthman, and he doesn't take out his sword first. He grabs his fingers and he starts strangling his neck. And the guy who's killing him is recording the incident live as he's doing it. He said, man, I've never felt a neck more beautiful and soft than this neck. As he was strangling that beautiful neck. And he strangled him so hard. He said, when I thought it was enough, and now it's time to finish the job, he kind of let his hands go to grab his sword. He said, when I let him go, he said, I saw him trying to breathe. He looked like there was a jinn inside of him, an evil spirit inside of him. He looked like he was possessed, because that's how hard he was trying to gasp for air to breathe. And he says, then he took out the sword, and he hit him one time. Uthman tried to defend himself. He tried to defend himself, and he cut off his hand. His hand flies, and Uthman, with tears in his eyes, said, that's the hand that first wrote all of the Mufassal surahs of the Quran. From Surah Hujarat to An-Nas, that's the hand that first wrote those. What are you doing? Trying to get this guy to stop. He doesn't stop. There's one other guy who walks in. He has some kind of a weird looking arrow. Takes that arrow, stabs him, and the first droplet of blood that oozes out, it flies out, flings out onto the Quran that he was reading, and it falls on that manuscript, and on the ayah, on the verse where Allah says, Allah will be sufficient for you against them. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And He's the one who listens, He's the one who knows. Stabs with that one last time, and then the last one, he takes the sword, severs his head, and walks by the head of Uthman. He says, I've never seen the head of a disbeliever look so beautiful, by the way. And that's how Uthman leaves his earth. You know what I'm saying? In this terrible state of, But again, the whole time, what was he doing? Just maintaining order, maintaining composure, keeping his emotions in check. The whole time, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, before this incident came to him, he said, oh Uthman, we have the numbers, we have the strength, let's hurt these people. He said, nah, I don't want to be the first to shed blood. I don't want to shed blood. That might be shed, no problem, it's all good. I don't want to shed blood. So Uthman, maintaining composure all the way to the last moment. knowing you're going to die, that the reason why you can be comfortable dying. You know what I'm saying? I played a message a few Jumu'ahs ago of a little boy, not so very little, he was 21 years old, passed away from our community. He was also a Hafiz of the Quran. And he basically records this beautiful message, right? The message is, you know, everyone, I'm leaving. I don't know if I'm going to wake up from this one, but chances are I'm probably not. But you know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? And then he beautifully recites a verse of the Quran, where Allah says, and we surely will test you, بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ, with a little bit of fear, وَالْجُوعِ, with a little bit of hunger, وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ, and a little reduction from your sustenance, وَالْأَنفُسِ, and we will test you with loss of life as well. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, and give good news to all those who are patient through these calamities. الَّذِينَ, what kind of calamities? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ, when any calamity befalls them, such as this one that I'm about to go through, death, all they say is, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Verily to Allah do we belong, and to Him do we return. That's what a Muslim says when another Muslim passes away. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah do we belong, and to Allah do we return. This man said it about himself before he died. He said his own Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And then he said, Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm closing my phone. It's like the man went to go take a nap. That's how comfortable he was. Why did I share that with everybody on the Jummah khutbah? Because that was inspiring. In 2023, it's still possible to die a death like this. You know what I'm saying? It's still possible to go out and leave this earth and be comfortable with what you've done here and have a healthy relationship with how you leave. Uthman radiallahu anhu, the reason why he got that dream and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to him and said, then come break your fast with us, is because he lived a life like that. If you live a life filled with life, then only can you be comfortable when you die. You know what I'm saying? When you're alive, when you live for the one who you're going to, then you'll be comfortable going to him. For Muslims, death is but a door to meet our beloved, to meet Allah. Man ahabba liqa Allah, ahabba Allah liqa'ah. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us, whoever loves to meet their Allah, Allah also loves to meet them. You want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do everything on this earth to please Him. Forget about people. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they divorced this concept of people pleasing. They were nice. They were the nicest people ever. That's literally how Islam spread. Everyone thought that, again, Jerusalem's patriarch was like, oh man, take this true cross and send it to Constantinople. I don't know what these Muslims are going to do. And when he found out that, our zakat, your zakat is cheaper than, it's more expensive than jizya, our tax and non-Muslim tax is cheaper than the Muslim tax. He's like, man, who are these people? Who are you guys? What are you? You just saw them walking around the lands that they rule. And like the Hormuzan, the great mighty Persian emperor, he came to Medina, which is the center of the caliphate of the whole world, looking for his leader, Omar. Where's Omar? Everyone's like, I don't know. Is he supposed to be on his throne or something? No, we don't know where he is. Some kids like, oh yeah, he's right there. And where was he? He was under a tree taking a nap on his shoes. And that's when Hormuzan, the great Sassanid emperor who's now defeated, says, Hakamta, adalta, aminta, faminta. You ruled fairly, that's why you're secure, and that's why you slept in. Right? So again, they lived their life like that. That's why, again, there's nobody from Muslim who's afraid to die. They're all ready. But again, afraid of a bad outcome after you die is what kept them living the way they were living. Because it's easy to say, live a life like you want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because while we're here in this lecture, we're super emotional. We feel like, Uthman, I want to die like that. That little boy, I want to die like that. I want to have a good death or whatever. Then you go back and then you're tempted with another party or with another, chance to screw around. And the first opportunity you get to throw it all away on all that spiritual vibe that you got, and any one of these lectures, the first opportunity you get to throw it away, you throw it away. You know what I'm saying? I throw it away. We like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. And then we like to justify. We're like, oh man, you gotta live. And then when we all sad, then like death comes and like we can't handle it, we can't cope with it, we're like, man, I don't know, this is so hard. No, our religion teaches us how to make it bearable. It's never ever not going to be hard. Death is hard. Death is painful. All these Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, they were like again, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was passing away, he was going through actual physical pain. Even Musa alayhi salam, let me tell you one of my moments from Jerusalem, was when we went to visit the graveyard of the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, the English Moses, right? Musa alayhi salam is buried in Ariha, in Jericho, which is the oldest city in the world, 10,000 years old. We go to visit Musa alayhi salam's maqam, and everything is going well. I'm giving a lecture in his masjid talking about him. It's beautiful. And it's beautiful like that in every other prophet's masjid. We went to Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abraham's masjid as well, alayhi salatu wassalam, and it was beautiful. Spoke about him, felt really spiritual, felt amazing. But the thing is, it was all like very similar, these experiences. Musa alayhi salam was a little different. His grave was inside of a room, and the masjid was like right here. It was a little bit separate. You had to go inside of a room to go to his grave. Now, as I'm leaving, I forget that I didn't go, say my peace be upon you, salam alaikum, and Fatiha, Fatiha, make a little dua. I didn't do that. So I grab my son and I go inside Musa alayhi salam's maqam. Before I go in, I stumble a little bit because my eye falls upon this very beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he describes where Musa alayhi salam is buried. And the description is so vivid, and that whole area looks exactly like that hadith I was describing. And the Kathib al-Ahmar. So that whole experience already is like warming me up for the surreal experience I'm about to get as soon as I walk in there. And I walk in there, and believe me, I'm not one of those people who said, man, it was so spiritual. Like, I don't make those things up, man. For real, I started trembling. I couldn't hold my kid, though. I put him sitting on the like, bro. I was shaking. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Because it says over there, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا, and Allah spoke to Musa directly. Allah spoke to Musa alayhi salam. You're just looking at that, just quivering. Nevertheless, I come back and then I read the whole hadith. I know the hadith, but I was just reading it because it's nostalgic to read it there. And it says there, Musa alayhi salam, even when he was passing away, the angel then came to him, and he only does this for prophets. For anybody else, if it's time to go, even if you're a baby, you're just another case file slapped on his desk, right? Like, it's just, he doesn't like differentiate. Musa alayhi salam is different because he's a prophet. Allah only gives all of them all these abnormal experiences. So the angel of death comes in and says, Ya Musa, Allah is calling you back, it's time to go. Musa alayhi salam, his instinct kicks in. He clocks him in the eye. He punches him really hard and the eye falls out. The angel of death, he comes in a human form, right? Angels, when they come to speak to you, they come to you. He punches him so hard, and then the angel of death, he gets all scared. Because how are you going to scare the Grim Reaper? Right? That's going to show you how cool Musa alayhi salam was, man. Even the angel of death went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَرْسَلْتَنِي إِلَىٰ عَبْدٍ لَا يُرِيدُ الْمَوْتَ. Oh Allah, you sent me to a guy who's going to die. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says to the angel of death, go back to him and tell him, no problem, put your hand on the back of the bull, and any hair that come off and stick onto your hand, that's how many years additional I'm giving you. So he did that, he went back and he's like, oh, this is what Allah is saying. And then he said to him, after that, what's going to happen? After those years that I get? He said, after that, you're going to die. He said, okay, man, he's taking me. Right? But you have to do that whole thing, because he moves out, he said, but again, that shows you that we're human beings. We just naturally, just going, it startles us, it scares us. It's naturally, because anything that you don't know what it's like, it's naturally fearful. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this life so we can learn about where we're going. Right? This is the whole purpose of this life is, learn where you're going. You won't be so scared to go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Then in that case, for the Sahaba, every time they would die for the right thing, it would be easy for them to die for the right thing because they know after this is just Allah. After this is only bliss. After this is no more problem. After this is just goodness upon goodness. But only if you live a life where you can see something like that. Now think about it from the perspective of our own lives. Right? What do I have going on in my life right now that prevents me from having a meaningful relationship with death? Is it the things that I'm attached to? Is it my wealth? Is it my want, my ambition to get more of it? Is it my ambition to get a higher degree or like a raise in status? Or more people to recognize me? Sometimes we mask our idea of I need to make a difference in the world by more people need to get to know me and I need to become more famous and more beloved, right? So we mask like that with, I need to make a difference in the world. And then what that turns into is just us doing weird attention-grabbing, attention-seeking things under the pretext of, I'm making a difference in the world by spreading kindness. I'm spreading. Yeah, nah, bro, you're just spreading a dance. You know what I'm saying? For real. We're here to do real talk. We're not here to talk about it from the perspective of, everybody's love, go back and don't make any changes. Nah. We're here to actually talk about making some real, what is holding me back from looking at death and saying, I'm ready to go tomorrow? It's our attachment to the things that we have here. The Sahaba really did not care about anything that they had here. Whether they had it, they didn't have it. Because Umar, again, he had the whole world in his hands, but he didn't take any of it for himself. The one time when he desired, one day he was like, I really feel like eating fish today, right? After all these days of just eating bread and olive oil, dry bread and olive oil, today I want to eat fish. The fish comes, and he's like, man, does every person from amongst the people who are under my rule have access to this? I don't think so. Nah, take this plate and go give it to some poor person. Why? How can a person do that? Because they know, man, if I let it go here, whatever, I'm only here for 5-6 days anyways. Then tomorrow, I'm going to be food for those insects. Whether I'm wealthy, whether I have eaten all these things, whether I have experienced all those places that people post about, whether I've seen all that money and driven all those cars, it's not going to make a difference to those insects who are going to come tear my body up a couple days later. Right? So, and that's why this body really doesn't matter. It's really just flesh and bones. It's the soul that matters. What am I doing to feed this soul? What am I doing to earn goodness and earn good deeds that will actually help me beyond this life? And that's why it was so easy for them to just be like, you know what? Under all circumstances, I'm happy. Thinking about death makes you happy about life. If you think about it the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us to. Because he says so beautifully, how wonderful is the situation of a person who believes. Why? Because every situation for that type of person is good. And he says, if you haven't gotten the point up till now, let me further emphasize, this is not the case for anyone except for someone who believes. Why? Because good times come to this person, they say, thank you Allah, Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to you Allah, and they're happy. They're grateful. And he says, when أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّةٌ, but the opposite of this happens to them, they lose a loved one, something bad happens to them, they get terminal disease, they get an injury, they get some form. They say, oh Allah, it could have been so much worse. Thank you so much for saving me from making it so much worse. I love you, oh Allah. And he says, how good of a situation is that to have for yourself? And he says that only happens when you believe. When our eyes are just so filled with only that which is in front of us and we only want to see what we have and only want to benefit from what we have, we're only going to be happy when we have it right in front of us. The moment it's stripped away for a split second, you lose one bar on your Wi-Fi signal, you get agitated. You start palpitating. Your phone disappears for half a second because you're so attached to the material. You're going to be like, I can't function. I can't do anything. You're still attached to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to have to come to a close soon, so I want to share with you an incident from one of the great emperors of the past. His name was Harun al-Rashid. Has anyone ever heard of Harun al-Rashid? Yes. You've heard of him? You've heard the name? Has anyone? Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid was a great Abbasid Khalif. Right? So the empires of Islam are Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, that's Khilafat al-Rashid, right after the Prophet. Then it's the Umayyad dynasty, the Banu Umayyad. Then it's the Abbasids. The third one is the children of Abbas radiallahu anhu. So from the Abbasids, there was many good rulers and many like funky ones too. But one of the really good ones was Harun al-Rashid, the best one. Spiritually wise, like the best one was Harun al-Rashid, spiritually wise. But the thing is, they're still kings. And like these Abbasids, kings of the world, and that was the Islamic golden age. Right? You know the West claims like the Renaissance or whatever. And that's all the stuff they stole from the Abbasid Empire. The Abbasid Empire was the age where they call them attitudes. It's Ibn Sina. Right? It's our people. It's all our people that deliver the science and the medicine. They used to go there and be proud of graduating from the Islamic world universities and then brought those concepts here. You know what I'm saying? And then, the Renaissance. Right? Nevertheless, the Islamic golden age, Abbasid Caliphate, those Salatin were fancy, man. Are you fancy? That was them. They were always dripped out. They would always be doing things to even advertise what fanciness they had. And one of those functions that they would have to basically just get lit was they would have poets come out and praise them, right? These kings, they would just have the poets come out and just do all kinds of poetry, spit all kinds of bars about how magnificent and glorious they are. So one of these events was happening in front of Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid, he's an actual intellectual, he's a man of science, and he's actually a poet himself, right? So he's actually taking interest in the grammatical scheme of all the stanzas, right? He doesn't really care too much for the meaning as much. He's just like, whoa, that was a good poem, that was a good poem. He's just kind of scouting for good poets in general. Not like he's just, but when you're a human being and they're saying all these good things about you, it's going to get to you a little bit. It's going to start making you feel yourself a little bit. And one poet in particular was going off. He had Harun al-Rashid jaw dropped, and he was just looking at him like, oh man, this guy feels different. And then Harun al-Rashid said, man, come here, I'm going to have you perform in front of everybody. He has him perform in front of everybody. And this is what comes out of this guy's mouth. He says, عشنا بدالك سالما في ظل شاهقة القصور. He says, oh Harun, live however long you want, completely safe and secure under the shadows of these magnificent palaces. يأتيك بما اشتهيت لدى الرواحي أو البكور. Whatever you want comes to you at any given time, day or night. Enjoy, live. He says, فَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ تَقَعَّعَتْ. However, remember, there's going to come a time where your breath is going to start having difficulty leaving your throat. It's going to start palpitating. It's going to start going like this. You know, your nafas is not your soul, is your breath. فَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ تَقَعَّعَتْ. When it starts, this literally is depicting the sound it makes in Arabic. فَهُنَاكَ تَعْلَمُ مُوقِنًا. فِي ظِلِّ خَشْرَةِ الصُّدُورِ. And you try to lean on your chest for support. And we do some lung exercise to get. The shadow of the crevices, the depths of the insides of your chest are giving out on you. He says, he's being eloquent with it, right? How he described it. He said, when that happens, فَهُنَاكَ تَعْلَمُ مُوقِنًا. At that time you'll know for sure, O Harun, أَنَّمَا كُنْتَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. That you were in nothing except for plain deception. When all of this comes to an end and you're also going to be going the same ground as one of your subjects, you'll understand that all of this was nothing. Today, this is a great Muslim leader, Harun al-Rashid, and a group of a large Muslims of South Florida. I mentioned his name, and there's one person who said, I kind of know his name. The glory and might he once had, and he's actually one of the good ones. So many years later, many of us barely know him. That's humbling. That's humbling that this great leader, once upon a time, there's Sultan Abdul Hamid Khan was in Istanbul crying, man, because Sultan Abdul Hamid Khan was the last guy who literally said, man, you insult my Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're going to have a problem. Everybody else said, let him do it, freedom of speech. Nah, that's my Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Keep his name out your mouth. Don't be drawing him for the funny cartoons or whatever. The one guy who spoke, and he's laid and his grave is there. I'm trying to just recite a spiritual Fatiha, and I'm interrupted by some promiscuous song that's playing across. I'm like, man, the reason why we are the way we are is because literally we've done it to ourselves. We're totally okay with what's normal. We're not okay with going out of our comfort zone to seek spiritual reform. We only want to be cool with that which is available in front of us, live in a comfort zone. Man, at that point, how much more different am I than just being another Oreo in the blender going in for a McFlurry? You know what I'm saying? For real, like I'm a fat boy. You know what I'm saying? My boy Coach Nico, he trains me every day. Mashallah, he came out, everybody should say hi and does this. Brother Nico, he knows, man, like I be having all kinds of injuries and stuff. As I didn't tell you, the main secret is I have a bad relationship with food. You know what I'm saying? My relationship with food is very similar to, Brother PJ Khaled. If you ever heard of him, you know what I'm saying? That brother has, his thing where he believes he's on the diet, but he's, you know what I'm saying? Maybe he's on the seafood diet, whatever he's seeing, right? And then on top of that, he says, on God, I can eat 5 of these, right? Bro, no one doubted that. So nevertheless, then, SubhanAllah, Allah says, وَمَنْ أَصَابَكُمْ مِنْ مُصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ. Your difficult circumstances befall you because of stuff you did yourself. You know what I'm saying? We like to talk about, oh man, I ain't happy, I'm depressed, I'm this, I'm sad, I can't cope with life too much, blah, blah, blah. Man, we gotta change our outlook, we gotta change our perspective, we gotta be willing to say uncomfortable things to ourselves in order to change. If you're not willing to do that, if you love yourself in the wrong way, because in this day and age, it's all about self-love, right? But if you love yourself in the wrong way, and Islamically, what does that mean? By following your desires. That's literally the wrong way to love yourself. Following your desires is the easiest way to destroy yourself. By Muslim standards and non-Muslim standards. You know, we talked about this great man, Umar bin Khattab. You know what his standard move was whenever he wanted to do anything in life? Anything in life, whenever he wanted to do something, what was his standard move, his standard protocol? He would say, Umar, what do you want to do? Oh, okay, cool. What do you do? We're not going to do that. Which is the opposite. He would say, one day, sleep on your bed, and the next day, sleep on the ground. So you know what it feels like to sleep on the ground. Somebody out there sleeping on the ground because they don't actually have a bed. You actually have a choice. But you must do that. Right? And subhanAllah, that's why they were able to be as comfortable as they were. The last thing that I say I close with is you have to be divorced from material in order to enjoy a healthy relationship with death. And the last thing that I close with, I have thumbs. Sultan Sulaiman al-Qanun. Has anyone ever heard of this guy? If you haven't heard of him, if you go to Jerusalem, you go to Istanbul, you'll see his name everywhere. Sultan Sulaiman Hamad, Sultan Sulaiman Masjid, Sultan Sulaiman. This is Sultan Sulaiman is everywhere. I want to go grab a shawarma in Palestine, Jerusalem, Sultan Sulaiman Street. Right? Sultan Sulaiman everywhere. The reason why is because he was the magnificent, he was known in the West as Sulaiman the Magnificent. Brought the Austro-Hungarian Empire to its knees, expanded the Ottoman Empire. Really, really great guy. One of his craziest battles of all time was the Battle of Mohaç, right? Destroyed all of these forces who allied against him, thinking that it was going to be an easy win. He spoke. After that win, it's the mighty Ottoman Empire. What do you think they're going to do? Hey, throw a feast. Let's party. Let's chill. Let's celebrate. And everyone is looking for the Sultan, the Grand Vizier looking, Ibrahim Pasha, who ended up being betrayed with this guy looking for, where's Sultan? Can't find him. Where did the Sultan go? So one of the close friends of the Sultan who knew him and what he would do at this point followed him, like where he thought he would go, and found him there. You know where he was after the battle? He dug for himself a little grave outside the palace walls. And he was just laying in the grave. And he was crying and he was reciting the verse of the Quran, لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ كَلَّا رَبِّ ارْجِعُونِ رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ. Oh Allah, please send me back to this earth. Why? So I can do one more good deed. One more good deed. And then he'd open his eyes and he'd get up from that grave and he'd say, Sulaiman, you came out of the grave this time. Tomorrow when you're in it, you're not going to be able to come out and get another opportunity to do another good deed and serve Allah. Go pray. And then he went straight to the prayer tent and go to the after party. Right? You don't have to be divorced from material. You can have the material and not care about it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us the ability to keep this dunya in our hand, not in our heart. Inshallah, Q&A will be after that. Alhamdulillah.